Hi everyone, it's Rochie and it's not Wednesday, it's Thursday night once again and welcome to Getting Candid with Rochie. Well, I hope you guys are having an amazing week and today's topic is something very close to my heart because I got a big question for you. Did you know that New Jersey and California is in the top 10 where there are so much or a big number of Asian Americans? Yeah, I was surprised too. I was like, New Jersey is the fourth in the country that has the most Asian Americans, and we're like, really? We're just a tiny state, but we're filled with a lot of Asians. Maybe I don't realize it, but I see a lot of people like me, so that's why I'm very at home in New Jersey. But anyway, did you know that for the past well, I would say there's about 20 million Asian Americans in the US right now. Yes, it's kind of big population, but um, it's something that is close to my heart because I am a mom and I'm raising Asian kids in the US, and sometimes I always get this question, Mom, am I an Asian? Am I an American? Am I American enough? So those are some of the struggles as a mom that I faced raising my kids. So anyway, there was even a story when one of my kids was asked if she was adopted when we were in the library. And the little girl said, Hey, are you adopted? And at that time, my daughter is only 3 years old. And she was asking, what does adopted mean? And then when the kids saw me, and she's like, oh, you're not adopted. And since then, my daughter's like, what is adopted mean? So anyway, Asians here in the US has been here forever, but we have very little voice. I would say we're just coming out right now. And tonight's guest is another Asian mom like me. She's been a friend of mine for a long time in the internet. Yes, we haven't seen each other personally, but we've been very close because she's one of those pioneers in the food allergy community. Please welcome, guys, tonight Miss Sharon Wong of NutFree Walk. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, hi, Rochie. Thank you so much for inviting me to join your show. Your introduction was so interesting. I didn't know
Oh,
that there's only 20 million Asian Americans in the United States. I didn't know that. That's really amazing.
yeah, because I was like looking at the stats, and it's only like 5% of the population. That's what they said. But you know
Wow.
what I'm thinking? It's probably because it's Asian Americans who are maybe naturalized or born Americans.
Oh, I
Maybe that's
see.
the thing, because maybe
Yeah.
that's the statistics. Because if you are like a permanent resident, because I've been a permanent resident for years, for almost 20 years before I
hmm
really sworn in to become an American. So probably
hmm
at that time in those 20 years, I was never counted because they considered
hmm
me probably just an Asian in America,
hmm Oh,
not
maybe.
really
Yeah.
an American,
Yeah, that
right?
would be interesting to find out. Yeah. I mean, you should be counted, right? Because you are, an Asian American too, even though you may not necessarily be born here, but you are an Asian living the American life.
Yes, but you know what? Maybe they said you're still not American because, maybe the passport thing or the citizenship. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm counted already because I got my citizenship 2 years ago.
Oh,
That's after,
congratulations.
yes, that's after 20 years. So I
Yeah,
actually lived most of my life here.
right,
And
right.
and my husband was like, oh, why you finally decided? I said, they said they want to renew my green card again. And I,
Let's make it permanent.
oh, and here again, it's cheaper.
I
And
love that.
because I said, my husband's like, oh, you want to? I think it's only a fee. I said if I'm going to be a citizen, because it goes up all the time because it's permits every 10 years
Yeah.
before.
hmm
So it's like it's going up again, and then if I become a citizen, I don't have to pay anymore for the next 10 years. And he's like, and it's only like I think $60 difference
Oh,
for the
okay.
application
Uh-huh.
fee. So he's like, also you're thinking it's cheaper in the next 10 years.
That's funny. That's funny. It's just a
Oh,
technicality, right? Because you
yeah.
really wanted to be an American. You've been here for so long. You're
Yes,
just part of this fabric of our community, of our country.
I know, because it's I've been here. I had my kids here.
Yeah.
I mean, and even before I stayed here, I always come here to visit because
Hmm.
my grandfather, he was an
Hmm.
American citizen when he, before, and so I always visit as a kid. That's why when I told my mom, I think that it's time, after college, I think I want to go to the U.S. and just stay
Hmm.
permanently. She's like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like,
Hmm.
it's the biggest independence because
Yeah.
I'm not with my parents, but I
Yeah.
still have family. So
Yeah.
she agreed. And then actually
Mm.
at first she said no, she's gonna visit. She's gonna be back after 6 months. And
Yeah.
then like
Yeah.
my mom's like, she's not back. She's like, and then she came here for a year and she's like, are you sure? And I'm like, Mom, I got my job. I have this
Yeah.
one. And my mom was like, oh, she really wanted to stay for
Hmm.
good.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that was
Yeah.
over 20
That's
year ago.
Yeah. Good for you. Well, that's really
Yeah,
huge. I can't imagine at this point, going to another country and like I'm just going to live in another country. I can't
I
imagine that.
know.
Right? It's such a big change, and it
Yeah,
takes so much courage to do
it
that.
is.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so I'm just declaring on the internet that I'm a chicken.
Okay. So anyway, for those of you who might be asking, that I would say Chinese because I had a Filipino Chinese, and yes, they say I have Chinese in my DNA as well.
Hmm.
We do
Hmm.
have what we call generations, right? They would tell
Hmm.
you what generation you are. And for those
Hmm.
who are watching who's not familiar with that, for me, I would say I'm a first generation American because I'm the one who moved here. And then
Yeah.
my children are the second generation because they are already born and raised here.
Right.
So,
Hmm.
how about you, Sharon? What generation are you?
I would say I'm second generation, but maybe third. I'm not sure, because my on my dad's side, my grandfather came here many years ago to um, work on the railroads and to farm in California. And then he went back, and then my father immigrated over when right after World War II. And so, since he's an immigrant, then I guess I would be second generation. But we actually have a very long history in the United States.
Yeah, I would agree because my actually, as I mentioned earlier, my grandfather, um, he actually he fought in you know the war back then, so he became a U.S. citizen through that. And then my
Hmm.
aunt and her family were all raised here. They moved like in the early 70s, late
Yeah,
60s,
yeah,
and
same. Hmm.
yeah, this is the thing.
Hmm.
But my mom stayed in the Philippines because she doesn't, I think she has her career there so that she can't leave
Hmm.
because she's a
Hmm.
college professor. But for
Hmm.
weirdest thing, she is an English teacher. So she's an
Oh, that's
English.
so wonderful.
Yeah,
That's
that's so.
great.
So it's weird because when I first came in, they're like, are you born here? Because I don't have that thick Filipino accent or something. And I
Yeah,
said, English is actually my first language
right.
because my mom was a teacher. She told me, I'll teach you English at home because you'll eventually learn it when you go out in the streets, the Filipino
Yeah,
language.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Hmm.
easier. So that's what they said. When it's your first language, that's the first, that's the thinking that you always get. So when I'm upset or
Right.
something, that's how I express myself. It's not
Hmm.
really Filipino. And most Filipinos were surprised. And I said, it's because my mom
Yeah,
raised me that way. And I think in the Philippines too, all of us actually speak English.
right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah.
So
All
it's
of
not,
my Filipino friends also speak English really well. Yeah. Um,
yeah. Yeah, because
yeah.
actually,
So,
yeah,
hmm,
in schools, we are taught math and science in English. And then aside from the
hmm,
English subject,
hmm,
and then our history and then Filipinos. So we are like, I would say bilingual in schools right away.
hmm, hmm.
So that's the thing.
That's
Mm.
great.
Now let's talk about kids. All right.
Okay, sounds great.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, um, you were born here in the U.S., right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. In California.
ooh, California girl.
That's right. All my
So,
life.
okay, so all your life you've been here in the U.S. Is there any instances where you felt I would say you're different being an Asian.
I
Like
think.
yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Well, okay. So I grew up in San Francisco, and I think that, when I lived in San Francisco, it was a very unique experience where there's like a Chinatown and there's like a huge community. And like in many of my classes, I would say like 30 to 50% of my classmates were Asian. And so
Mhm.
maybe at least 30%. And so I kind of grew up in this bubble where I was really used to being around a lot of Asians and not feeling like a minority ever. And I remember my teachers were really adamant about, we all live in different communities. We all live in the same community with a lot of different cultures, and we all accept each other, and we are all the same. We're all humans. And so I just kind of thought that, everybody was like that. But I think as an adult, I've seen more racism and kind of surprised by that. And but I think for the most part, I feel like it's great to. I feel comfortable being an Asian American.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Because actually, for me, because when I moved here, I was
Hmm.
20, 21.
Hmm.
I was trying to. So at first, I thought it was really nice, because coming from the Philippines, where I would say we might look a little diverse, but it's not as diverse looking because we're still more Asian looking, maybe different colors of Asian, but
Hmm.
not that much. So it was really amazing because when I first moved, I was in New York, in the
Yeah.
Queens area. So that's where
Hmm.
my aunts live, my cousins live.
Hmm.
And then when I had my job, my first job, I have to move to Pennsylvania. And
Hmm.
at that time, I would say early 2000s, some places of Pennsylvania is still not as diverse.
Hmm.
I was surprised that because I was working with I would say it's a Filipino company. So it's mostly most of the workers there are also Filipino. Like it's just
Hmm.
like a big family business back there.
Yeah.
We like because we're there, so we as part of work, we rent in the same apartment because we get discounts, and that one. So
Hmm.
they know us. It's like a blonde, blue-eyed community, and they know us that we are the Asian people, the only Asian people in that area. And
Uh-huh.
it's funny because
Mhm.
we're not technically relatives. We're just working together, but because
Yeah.
when we go to the Y, they're like, oh, you don't need to apply for membership. She's already a member in your family, so
Hmm.
I'll just put you under because we have the same address. And they're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but we're not related, but they're like,
Uh-huh.
no, your family, it's fine. So we're like, we're now have this one family like discount in the YMCA, even though we're not
That's
related.
funny.
And we're like, are you sure we want to pay? And they're like, no, you're the only family here. And that's maybe that they're saying a good way that
Yeah.
you're the only family here, but like you're the only different ones here, probably, is
It's
what
like
they're
you're a
thinking.
monolith,
Actually,
right?
yeah. So I'm like, it's okay as long as I get the family discount, I'm fine. So
Yeah.
we're good
That's
to
a
go. Oh,
that's a funny
typical.
story.
Yeah, but we're like, we're all not, but it's okay. Okay, thank you. But
Uh-huh.
that is
Yeah.
really a funny one. But I think at that time, I never felt the, that type of racism. They just
Hmm.
felt that you are there. But
Yeah.
I know right away what they're trying to say is that we know you, that you're part of them.
Right.
I think
Right. Right.
it's not a bad racism thing, but I think you are. I mean, hello, you're all blonde and blue eyed, but you're not related. But you all have memberships. Like that
Right.
thing.
Right. Right.
So
I don't think that was racist, but maybe just like maybe at most a microaggression, or they're just like not aware of, who you are. And just
Mm-hmm.
because you look alike doesn't mean that you're one family, you know.
Yeah.
I think that my experience is that people always want to know, where are you from? And I'm
Oh,
like, well, I'm from San Francisco. And they're not satisfied with that answer, because literally I am from San Francisco. But then they're like, okay, where are your parents from?
from San Francisco.
Right, right. And I'm like, oh, you mean, well, they're from Hong Kong and China, and then they're like, oh, you're Chinese. I'm like, you could have asked me that in the first place, but
Well, actually, I receive that a lot too,
yeah.
and it's weird because I would say I'm Filipino, but because I know, well, after finding my DNA, I
Hmm.
know that I'm really a mixed race. Like,
Um,
because I had my Spanish roots
yeah, yeah,
and mostly Asian ones, but different types of Asian. So every time I go somewhere, depending on like probably my makeup or what I wear, they would say, oh, they would think I'm Korean, they would think I'm
yes,
Chinese, and
yes.
even
Hmm.
sometimes Vietnamese, a fairer looking Vietnamese.
Hmm.
So, and
Hmm.
then, and if I tell them I'm Filipino, no, you're not Filipino. And I'm like, I think,
That's
but
really funny.
I think I'm embraced by other Asian cultures,
Yeah,
other
yeah.
Asian countries than my
Hmm.
own Filipino. Because
That is
even, it's funny because even my husband didn't know if I'm Filipino or not when we first met.
really, oh,
Yes.
interesting. Hmm.
And I'm fluent in Filipino. The only giveaway was like he behind my back, he started talking in Filipino.
Uh-huh.
And of course I started answering back in Filipino because he's
Yeah,
talking behind my back and he was
yeah,
surprised.
yeah.
And that was the first thing, is like, I even thought you were Japanese. Because at that time I had uh I I colored my hair, early 20s. I
Hmm.
colored my
Hmm.
hair blonde, almost
Hmm.
blonde. And
Hmm.
they said mostly at that time, only the Japanese are the one who had like crazier hair.
Hmm. Hmm.
So he
Hmm.
felt like maybe she's Japanese, but she doesn't sound Japanese, like those things.
Hmm.
But it is weird, and actually, I realized that too with raising my kids because like as a blogger, we go all over the place, and I take them. And a few
Right.
times, my kids were being asked, they would tell me, they're asked, "Where are you from?" And they're like, "From Jersey." They
Right.
would say
Right.
we're from Jersey, and they're like,
Right.
"No, no, no,
Literally.
where are you really from?" And I was like, "New Jersey." And like, where's your mom from? He's like, "She's also from New Jersey." What else can they answer?
Right. Their kids are probably really super sweet, and they don't really understand what they're trying to get at.
Yes, and then they would start doing that. I would say the Jersey face. I
Hmm.
don't know if you know that, but in Jersey we call it, because they would say New Jersey and New York are a little strong-hearted people, right?
Uh-huh.
So she
Uh-huh.
would start doing that frown, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, I think you're busy," and then she suddenly became nice to me, and I'm like, "Because you had that Jersey face already that you're trying
Oh,
to,"
that's
but we're
hilarious.
laughing. Yeah. I know, but um, one of those things, because you've erased, I know you had your nut free walk, which is, I would say, Asian flair with all your recipes, right? So
Hmm.
I really assume, not assume, I know that you are actually trying your best to live as an American, but actually has that, I would say, Asian or Chinese culture in you, right?
Hmm.
Like still maintain it. Because for me, it's funny because with my children, actually with my first child, she actually has to go to she was asked to go to ESL when she was in
Hmm.
kindergarten
Hmm.
because I never talked to her in English,
Hmm.
just like what my mom taught me. So she was
Hmm.
very fluent in Filipino, and then when she started learning English in school, she's a bit slow. So they were like
Hmm.
asking, "Are you just did you just move here or this one?" No, she's born and raised in Jersey City.
Yep.
It's just that
That happened to
I
me too.
tried to give the language.
Yeah.
You did?
that same thing happened to me too because my parents spoke to me only in Cantonese. And so when I started kindergarten, I just walked in like the only thing I knew was just how to watch TV in English, but I spoke in Cantonese, and so it was really hard. I'm like I had no idea why I was being dropped off at school. I totally remember like my parents dropped me off and I left. They left, and then I guess the teacher must have been saying something to me, but then I had no idea. I just walked out and followed my parents. Like they left me here, and I remember the teacher ran out the door and collared me and brought me back in because I really didn't know what was happening.
Aw.
And but eventually, I ended up in an ESL class as well.
Well, my daughter, if she didn't go, because when her first school is a preschool, it's in
Hmm.
Jersey City, and Jersey
Hmm.
City is very diverse. And
Yeah.
most of the teachers in the preschool are Filipino, so they actually speak in English to
Oh,
them.
that's
So she's
good.
used to it.
Yeah.
But then when we moved here, in our little suburban town, it suddenly became like I would, she would understand basic English, like what's your name, but
Yeah.
then, as I would say most Americans would talk, which is very fast, she was like, wait up. And I think she is processing or like
Hmm.
having that literal interpretation
Hmm.
like, in her brain, so she's a little slow. And then it's funny because when I talk to the teachers at that time, they're very concerned because it was a Catholic school and they're very nice. So, and they were surprised because I know most Filipinos, they don't teach the Filipino language to their kids. They just let, all English and everything. So
Hmm.
that's what most of them thought, that we just moved because she just doesn't know the language.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
when I just told her, you know what, she could understand. It's just you have to be a little slow. But they're like, they're kindergarten. You have
Yeah.
to be quick. So since it's a Catholic school, they ask, we would love to help you so that you don't have to do other ESL. Because
Right.
the thing I noticed that too in our town or in most of the towns is that when they say ESL, it's mostly Spanish.
Hmm.
So
Right.
in our pocket, they were like, some of the teachers were like, I'm Italian, I could do it like, extra hours with your
Hmm.
child, but it's not Italian. We have a
Hmm.
Polish, a teacher who's a Polish teacher, a Russian teacher, but or a Spanish teacher, or even French, but we don't have Filipino teachers for you.
Hmm.
So I actually went. They actually told me to go to the school board of our
Yeah.
town and ask for
Hmm.
ESL. And that is when I realized that it's only Spanish. They don't
Hmm.
offer other languages for ESL. They only offer aside, yeah, just the Spanish. But I said I've seen a lot of Vietnamese in our town. There's some who
Right.
are from, I would say, some from Egypt who speaks Arabic. What are they doing? So it's
Hmm.
really from our own pockets to pay for ESL. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why is it not? At that time, that's when I said, why is it not fair?
Right.
Because
Right.
and then I said, why you say ESL? It should just be just a Spanish English class.
Hmm. Right. Right.
Mhm. I think that is one thing that just brought caught me off guard there. That you're not included. That's when I realized you're not included. The only ones
Right.
included
Right.
are the Spanish and like what? And
Right.
then but then how do you help preserve your culture with the kids, the Chinese culture with your kids as they grow up?
Uh, we tried a lot of different things. So, like, I think one of the easiest and most primary ways is to hang out with their grandparents or older relatives and just talking to them, right? And we also would take the kids to Chinese school, much to their dismay. So there was like a
Oh.
Saturday morning language school, and they would include a lot of the culture things, like like singing songs and plays and things like that. That's Chinese related, but it was really to learn Chinese. But and then we would read a lot of books. So when my kids were little, I always checked out books, a variety of books, and I always looked for books by Grace Lin. She's like a really great Chinese American author and just writes really, really cute books. And, there's like some other books that are like, I remember reading one with my kids had to do with this Korean family and how they come home and they make bibimbap, things like that. So, just different types of books to kind of expose them to other cultures, but also to show that representation, to see our representation in like movies or books, and we take them to museums and look at Asian art and things like that.
That's good because actually, you know what? That's one thing we're just starting to have right now is the Filipino school. Because I
Mm-hmm.
know right away there's Jewish school, like
Yeah, right.
so, I know. But the thing is because I know right away because one of my daughters, she has a Chinese and a Polish, she's mixed, so her mom is
Mm-hmm.
Chinese, a Polish dad, so she has to
Mm-hmm.
go to Chinese school and she has to go to Polish
Mm-hmm.
school, and
Oh
she's like,
no! Oh,
I feel bad for her,
yeah, yeah,
and then they're like, Mom, we have to thank you. What you don't have to, you didn't force us to go to a Filipino school. And I said, there's
yeah,
none.
yeah.
Because the thing is, we're all English. That's what I would say.
Right,
We when
right.
every time we move, some might have thick accents depending on the region they are, but it's
Mm-hmm.
actually most people don't know is that English is the binding language in the Philippines
Right, right. Mm-hmm.
because we have like 7,000 islands, and each
Mm-hmm.
island
Mm-hmm.
usually have their own dialects, and
Right.
it's the hardest. And some people would say, is it hard? No, let's just put it this way. If one province is Pennsylvania and one province is New Jersey, right,
Mm-hmm.
they're just together, what, divided by a little border. You don't even see the border. Their
Right. Mm-hmm.
language is, I mean, their dialects is so different that,
Mm-hmm.
like, the word bird here means fish on this side of town.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and then and we have a lot of those in different towns, like different
Yeah.
provinces. So the only thing that binds us actually is not, because the Filipino language is based on Tagalog, which is
Mm-hmm.
like, I would say, just like Mandarin, which is like a capital,
Yeah.
like it is the language of the capital.
Yeah. Yeah.
But majority of the people are not from the capital. Most people in the south are actually speaking a different dialect, so
Oh,
they could
interesting.
technically majority.
Yeah.
So they're technically the majority of the population, but because Manila is there, we speak a different language. So it is actually English that binds us because it is the one that's taught in school.
I did not know that. That's really very interesting because
Yes.
in the Bay Area we have a city called Daly City, and everybody
Yeah.
speaks Tagalog there, right? I did not know that
Mhm.
there are different dialects, and we actually have
Yes.
that experience too in our family. So my family is Cantonese, and my in-laws are my husband's family is Shanghainese, and but we all speak our own village dialect too. So for my parents, they speak Mengdu, and then for my husband's family, they speak Ningbo, which is like a dialect in that area. And then my kids went to school and learned Mandarin. So so my kids can't speak Ningbo or Shanghainese or Cantonese or Lembu, but they know Mandarin, and because that's supposed to be the main language from China, my mom can kind of understand Mandarin. My in-laws can kind of understand Mandarin, but it's like getting together with a chicken and a duck and a goose and trying to have a conversation.
I know. So you all speak in English, right?
Right, we're all speaking English to some degree, and so like my mom and my in-laws can speak in Cantonese, and then the kids are not super fluent in Mandarin, so it's really hard. So they're just speaking to their grandparents in English, and that was one of the things that my son and I just talked about. Like they feel like they it's hard for them to feel really close to their grandparents because even though they love them very much, they love each other very much. and then you can like gesture and see each other and understand each other's body language, but they're not communicating very deeply. There's more like, oh, would you like to eat this, or how's school, or do good in school, study hard, that kind of thing. Just more general things rather than being able to talk about your emotions or your feelings, or like more, tell me about your history or what your childhood was like. They can't have those kinds of conversations.
Oh, see, mine is different because when my mom talks to the kids through the phone, because they're retired in the
Hmm.
Philippines, or
Yeah,
like through like through Messenger
yeah.
or FaceTime, I would
Hmm.
say, Ma, stop talking in English. Speak in Tagalog. And she's like, why? They need to, they understand it.
That's so
And,
funny.
and she's like, why? They totally understand it. The thing is, I would say the only thing that was very difficult for them is I would say they can't speak the proper one, like the
Yeah,
grammatically right
yeah,
one,
yeah, yeah.
because we don't. I mean, I only learned that in school, but I would say if you go in the streets of Manila or something, we don't do
Hmm.
grammatical
Yeah,
speaking, right? We're
or
just
slang.
talking,
Yeah,
yeah, the
yeah.
slang one. So
Hmm.
I said even the slangs my kids know because they watch the Philippine shows.
Right.
And because
Hmm.
most of the shows we speak like there's a mix of Filipino and English. Like
Hmm.
in one sentence they would add it, so you can totally grasp what they're
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
So my mom is like, Ma, why don't you speak in Tagalog? They totally understand, and let them, because I have to force them to speak it, because the thing is they know it in their brains. They
Right.
understand it. It's
Hmm.
just everything comes wrong when it goes out of their mouths. And they were like, "What? No, because the accent is wrong or this one is wrong."
Yeah,
And I said,
yeah.
the only
Hmm.
thing you could do is to practice it, because if you don't practice your language, you're just not gonna learn
Right,
from it.
right. Hmm.
And they were like telling me, because some families would say, oh, the mom only speaks, I would say like Mandarin for my other friend. Uh, she only speaks Mandarin. The dad speaks Polish, or sometimes, so the kids would understand the two. They have a conversation and then they would speak in English. And it's like,
Hmm.
why are you the only one speaking to us in both English and Filipino? Why not dad? And I said, your dad is
Hmm.
actually from the south. If
Hmm.
his dialect is the bigger language. It's actually the
Oh, okay.
Bisaya, which is the bigger language. I would say the
Interesting.
big, widely spoken.
Hmm.
And then he said, and he can't teach you the Tagalog one, the Filipino one, because his Filipino is actually broken,
Right,
because
right. Uh-huh.
he's doing the dialect. So he would figure that's why he speaks to you in English, because he knows that you won't understand a single thing he said, and I won't even understand what he was trying to say.
It's the same thing in our household.
See, guys, for those of you who are saying being bilingual is hard, it's worse if you have the dialects, right?
Yep. Hmm. Right. Or are you dealing with different dialects?
I
Or yeah.
It
Hmm.
is that, but that's fun too, right? If you have, do they actually try to wear their I would say some Chinese outfit, or if there's a gathering?
Oh, I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
I
Yeah,
remember. I remember when they were younger, they would use the barong, which is like the embroidered
yeah,
one. But then,
yeah.
as they grow, they said it's very itchy. We don't want it
Oh, really?
anymore.
Oh, interesting.
Or
Yeah.
and then my daughter's like, it looks so pretty. And then when I had them shipped here, they're like, Ma, it's itchy. Yes,
Mhm.
because they are different types of what?
Yeah.
Fabric, and it's not meant
Right.
for everyday use. I mean, I don't even
Right.
use that for everyday. So,
Hmm.
but that was one of the coolest. But I think there's one thing that binds us all together. It's the food, right?
Right. That's right. That's right. Yes. Hmm.
Yeah.
I love Filipino food. I love it. There's like I wish there were more Filipino restaurants in the Bay Area.
Oh, and you already have a lot of restaurants there, right?
Yeah, but not enough Filipino food.
Hmm. The thing about it, because see, speaking of food, most Filipino food is, I would say, it's when it comes to fusion.
Hmm.
I think Filipinos started the fusion.
Oh, you think
because
so? Yeah.
yeah, because just like I mentioned, like in some parts of the country, because it's I said it's islands, right? So
Yeah.
some parts where they have more coconuts, they would
Yeah.
make more, coconut based food, which is mostly like Thai
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Indian food. So they're like,
That
oh,
makes
it's
sense.
spicy. But it's in that part. And then some people when they migrated to the Philippines, it's mostly like those long
Right.
before Spaniards came. I would say
Right.
before it was Philippines. That's what we always
Right.
say.
Right.
They
I was
had that
looking at.
one. Yeah, they
Yeah,
had
I was
that
looking at.
one.
Go ahead.
Okay, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I was
Go ahead.
I was looking at that one and I said, yeah, that's what the region where most influences are. And then there's some region that's mostly Spanish influence, and there are
Mm-hmm.
some places that are mostly Chinese influence. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why the difference with the food,
Yeah, I
right?
was just gonna say that. I was looking at Pensit, and interestingly enough, Pensit sometimes called Pensit Canton because they use Chinese noodles. And I'm like,
Yeah, the
oh, there's a
Cantonese.
lot of,
Yeah,
yeah, there's like a little bit of overlap right there. I love Pensit.
yeah. You like the pancit canton?
Oh, I totally love it. Yes.
Yeah. No, because I would say the pancit canton is like the lo mein one, right?
Yes, right? Yeah, yes,
It
pretty
is like
much.
the lo
Hmm.
mein, and then
Hmm.
we have that's what I said. Depending on which area, because some areas actually put a little in their pancit. It depends on the region. Some would have a little curry on it, like like the Singapore May fun that it has a little
Hmm.
curry,
That's
and then
right. Hmm.
some pancit, and they're like, yeah, they're all called pancit. It just depends on the
Hmm.
place and the noodles.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but that's the influence. And I said with the fusion type with food, they had the little things, like little, if there's the Spanish influence, because they would tell me, oh, I have the arroz caldo or this one. They're like,
Hmm.
oh, it's Spanish or the caldereta. Yeah, because during the colonization time, this is what we got. You have to be the cooks, so you got to
Hmm.
learn how to make them. You have to make your own flan, but they're
Hmm.
supposed to be for the masters, so the
Hmm.
others improvise the recipe,
Interesting.
and that's what we got. And that's why I told him, you know what? Don't tell the Italians, but we actually killed the spaghetti. Have you? I know you've been in Jollibee. Have you been in Jollibee?
I haven't. Hmm.
You
No,
haven't?
no, I don't
Oh,
think so.
because we have the Filipino spaghetti, which is like the
Hmm.
weirdest part. And I said, don't, because I am in an Italian Irish town. I
Hmm.
said, don't give it to the Italians; they will kill us. Why? Because it has a meat sauce, which is good
Hmm.
to start with, right? Spaghetti, but
Hmm.
it's way overcooked because I don't know why Filipinos like it mushy,
Yeah, yeah,
almost like pancit. So
yeah.
that's how we cook the noodles, and then they put tons of sugar because we have the sweeter taste.
Yeah.
Filipino food
Hmm.
are sweeter, so they
Hmm.
put tons of sugar on that spaghetti sauce,
Hmm.
right? So most of the times are like it's not. Usually it's the tomatoes are a little sour. No,
Yeah,
it's too
yeah,
sweet.
yeah.
And then we're gonna put ham and hot dogs on it, and tons of like Velveeta cheese. So
Uh-huh.
how messed up that is. It's like American because it has the American influence in that one. And Italians are like, what did you just do on a typical spaghetti with meat sauce?
Right, right, right.
But
I guess
and
that's
we're
what
like,
was available at the time. That's those are the ingredients available.
yeah, and it's the cheaper one because I said, remember, it's the poor people one, so you only have the tiny meat, and then you
Hmm.
got the hot dog, which is actually like rations from World War
Yeah,
Two,
yeah. Hmm.
and you got some spam in there as well,
Yes, yes, that's right. Hmm.
and they're like, and if you remove that, it's no longer a Filipino spaghetti. So
Hmm.
that's just how it is.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just the weirdest thing. And then they're like, "What did you just do with the flan?" Or like, because and I said, yeah, that's the Filipino style, but it tastes good, so just close your eyes.
Yeah, right, right, right.
Yeah, so it is so weird. So anyway, we were talking about raising kids and you being raised here too. What can you say about what they call the model minority myth?
Oh, well, Okay, so I guess the model minority myth is when people say, some people might say, oh, look at the Asians, they are like the model minority, and they're like, really good at school, and they're really successful, and they work really hard, and so, all you other people, you should just be like them. And, while, it's partially true, but, I'm very proud of my own Asian American heritage of people who are extremely hardworking and capable and smart and honorable and things like that. That's definitely part of our heritage. I think that is actually the model minority has been used, this is a concept that has been used in a way that's really harmful. And because it's used as a tool to compare other people and to say, basically say to other groups that you're not good enough, you're not trying hard enough, you should be like these people. And like in the family dynamic, if you have like several children, you say, oh, you should be like sister number 2 because she is really smart and she's like the best and she's like perfect, and you should be like her, not like, not get bad grades and not, not have a bad job or whatever, right? I mean, that we know that kind of family dynamic is going to be harmful and destructive, right? But if we perpetuate these kinds of ideas in our society, then it is actually very damaging. And I wish that we didn't do that.
Yeah, actually, for whatever reason, I never thought of that. I never learned of that line until recently. And
Mm-hmm.
it's weird because my kids, I have my girls now are in high school.
Mm-hmm.
They knew about that for the longest time, and they're like, "Ma, you
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what that means?" And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"I didn't know. I just know that you're good in school." Like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's why, because I would say, because my daughter now, my oldest one, she's the more outspoken one, or I would say the most outspoken one in the family. And
Yeah.
then she would say that's the hard part because you remember the pressure that she has to went through when she was young. She
Mm-hmm.
said, they just by looking at me, they're expecting me to be good
Right.
in math.
Right.
And actually math is her worst subject. She's like, I don't like it. I like history and
Right.
this one. But
Right.
she's forced. I mean, for me, I would say I'm that kind of mom that says, you know what, everybody has different talents. So I would say if you're getting B's, I'm happy. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes she
Mm-hmm.
said, Mom, can you be happy? I got like a 79. It's just 1 point. Can you make it an 80? and,
That's so
and,
cute.
and then she's like, why? Just round it off, please. I would just say that. But I'm not forcing her. And I told her, you know what? I'm not
Right.
forcing you to get hundreds on math because I know you have a different talent, right? I know you're struggling.
Right.
But she told me, you know what? When I was young, that's what they do. When they look at me, they are expecting my quizzes to be
Right.
perfect, and it gives her pressure
Right.
because I am not good in math. Like
Right.
that other person is good in math, but not me, and that person is
Right.
not Asian. But you had
Right.
that stereotype, or that,
Right. Right.
or
Exactly. It's a stereotype.
yeah, and then
Mm-hmm.
that she would say, like, she has opinions, and she said she encountered it too. Like she has opinions in some of her classes, like because she loves history, right? So she
Mm-hmm.
would raise
Right.
her hand for history, or so. She doesn't really raise her hand, but you know what? She wanted to talk, or sometimes she would put the hand there, but they won't call her if it's like those opinion type because they thought that she doesn't speak English. Especially if
Mm-hmm.
it's a new teacher. She's
Right.
like, why are they
That's sad.
assuming that
Mm-hmm.
that I have good things to say? I said, no, I think, for me, I try to explain more. But I think as mom, I don't know, we have to put the line between being realistic, what's really happening, and not to
Mm-hmm.
sugarcoat it, because that's what she told me.
Right.
Mom, you are an Asian. And you know what? You try to let things go.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Right.
what she told me. You try to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
You're justifying what she said. I said maybe she's just busy, or she didn't see your hand.
Right.
She's like,
Mhm.
Mom, I'm in the front. I can't doing this much because I'm already in
Mhm.
the front. I'm doing like
Right.
this, and she doesn't. Like it takes me a while, and it's very different because my other daughter, I would say she looks more Filipino, but she has more his. She can be more Hispanic looking
Mhm.
because she got darker skin,
Mhm.
and then I would say her eyes are small, but it's her features that it's not like a typical, I would say, Asian that you're fair, you're Asian right away and you see that. So
Mhm.
it will take a while to see the Asian in her, but she could easily pass as a Hispanic girl.
Mhm.
So she said she's treated differently because she's like a
Because
Hispanic.
because people have different stereotypes of her because of how she looks like, and rather than
Yeah.
seeing her as an individual, as a person, as a whole person with, getting to know her and getting to know what she's really interested in, what she cares about.
Actually, that was something that I didn't notice because for me it's
Mhm.
like, oh, you're all my children, you all look like me, but and they're like, you never realize because we're just talking it now, like they're in high
Yeah.
school, and
Yeah.
it's weird because if you see my third child, I would say my son, he probably got he's Asian looking, but he looks mixed, and I could see that he looks mixed because even when he's a baby, everybody thinks that his dad is actually white because he
Mhm.
has that I would say white Asian mix, but he's not. His dad is totally Filipino, but I think it's
Mhm.
probably the Spanish in our blood that came out, and it has
Mhm.
that because my grandmother looks. See, I didn't realize that my grandmother looks white.
Mhm.
the,
Mhm.
the Spanish one because she's actually from Spain. So
Oh,
my daughter,
interesting. Mhm.
it was my daughter who pointed out that why do I have a white great grandmother? And I'm like, what's white? We just saw her in the picture, right?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Uh-huh.
no, she's the, and can you see how white she is? She's not Asian. And I
Mhm.
think that's one of the genes that came out for the other one. And they said,
Interesting.
ha-
Mhm.
have you seen the differences that we were treated? And I'm like, I never saw that. Here's how we are treated in school. The first one is really the typical, I would say, Asian one because she's really
Mhm.
very Asian. The next
Mhm.
one can pass like a Latina. And then
Mhm.
that one is like a mixed white, uh, I would say, Asian kid. We are all treated differently in school. And I'm like, really? And then
Mhm.
that's when they pointed out, like, they they have very like he doesn't have the standards. Actually, they call it this one the boy. He thinks he's a jock for some weird reason because it has the white in him,
Mhm.
and he's very good because of his Asianness. And I'm like, what? I don't understand that. And then
Interesting.
that's when they told me, Mom, because we're Filipinos, we look different to a certain
Mhm.
degree from other
Mhm.
people. And none of them thinks they're Filipino. They were right away stereotyped on a certain
Yeah.
group. And we are treated differently. Like, are you, because I said, I never felt, and I said, is it racist? And they said, no, it's not racist. But you would feel there's a difference the way we are being treated outside. And
Sounds like they're being treated with a certain bias. They're
yeah,
treated according to people's biases or perceptions about them, again, without really considering, who they are,
hmm and actually, that's one thing they were trying to say. It's like, can you just, because they were like, we are just Americans. But the good part about it is that, there are four kids in a school district. So I
Mm-hmm.
said, they know
Mm-hmm.
you already. We never had any issues with bullying because they said, oh, she
That's
got,
good.
like, this guy has a big sister, because they're all two
Mm-hmm.
years apart. So I
Mm-hmm.
think they
Mm-hmm.
always have each other.
Yeah.
But it's just that there was one instance when it hit me. It was pre-COVID. When I pick up my daughter number two, she got out of school. It was actually the week before we shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was so angry. And I'm like, why are you so angry? And she's like, I can't believe that some people is very racist. And I'm like, well, and right away that mom
What happened?
lights were
Yeah.
like, and I'm still here in the school grounds, like
Yeah.
I'm like that. And then, and she's like, what happened? Because I thought it was her, like this.
Hmm.
And she's like, no, it's actually, and then I mentioned a friend, and he's actually Chinese. And he moved in town like probably 6 years ago. So he's still,
Hmm.
I would say, long enough to say that
Yeah.
he's been in the in the school district for a while.
Hmm.
So it's like what? It's just this one kid just told him, "Oh, be careful, because that virus
Oh,
only hits you."
oh my gosh, that's awful.
That was so,
It's
and
awful.
and my daughter was there, and she was like, "What are you talking about?" And
Right.
he's like, and then the other guy said, and it's weird because he was actually saying out of concern for that
Right.
Chinese,
Right. Hmm.
but it's so awful. And then she's like, "What are you talking about?" "Oh, don't. It's not you. Don't worry about you. It's just him because it only hits him." And then she's like, "I'm Asian,
What? Yeah.
and she's
Yeah.
the one who's. It's like, and then that guy they've known what them forever because she's been in the district forever. He's like,
Hmm.
I I'm Asian, and you're just doing that on that in him.
Yeah.
And he's like, but you're different. It's like, what's the difference? My mom has Chinese DNA on her. Have you seen
Yeah.
what my mom looks like? And then
Hmm.
he's like, oh, I know what your mom looks like. And I think that time, that other child who said something, figured things out like, what did I just say or something?
Right. Right. Hmm.
But he's like, and then she was like, so I said, is he really mean it? Is it really meant in a bad way? Because he's concerned.
Right. Right.
but
Hmm.
but just it, but my daughter said no. She just mentioned the word. The virus only hits you,
Yeah.
and I'm there as another Asian,
Right. Right.
and
This sounds like there's a little bit of ignorance, but then he's like a sweet kid that cares about his friend, but his information is not medically sound.
well, I would say, what can you expect? They're high school kids, like at
Right.
that time,
Right.
sophomore. But
Right.
when you say you people, like only
Yeah.
you, and
Yeah.
of course, right away she got very defensive
Hmm.
because what's the difference between me and him? We're Asian. And if you
Right.
say Chinese, my mom is like Filipino, but have you seen how Chinese looking my mom is? And
Right.
we know
Well.
that she got
Mhm.
Chinese blood in her. So what are you talking about?
Right.
And
Hmm.
and also that happened. And at that time, I said, maybe, just let it go a bit. And she was upset. And then that same day, for one weird reason, my other child, who was in the middle school, experienced that as well. Not him, but his friends too, who are Chinese and Vietnamese. Actually, for the Vietnamese one,
Hmm.
because another kid said, you have the Chinese virus, but he's actually Vietnamese.
Uh-huh. Right.
And they're
Like
like,
just
what?
because he's Asian, he just looks like a Chinese person because he's Asian.
And that's the thing.
Hmm.
And at that time they were fifth graders.
Right.
And
Hmm.
then my son, he's like, and that's the youngest one. And I would say he could pass more Hispanic as well as the other sister.
Hmm.
He's like, what are you talking about? That's what. And he's like, why are you saying that he has Chinese virus? He's Vietnamese.
Hmm.
And then they're like, oh, not you. And then I'm Asian too. I'm Filipino. Like he
Yeah.
was like saying this. It's like we are. And then they were talking, and I said, I think I need to talk to the school district about it. But then again,
Right.
they
Right.
shut down the school because of bigger concerns. But after that
This is why.
experience, I was
Yeah. This.
surprised
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
things like that happen
Right.
in this day and age. I would,
Right. Right.
Mhm.
I think that the WHO made a really good decision to say to call the virus, COVID-19, rather SARS-CoV-19, instead of like the Wuhan virus or the Chinese virus, because it just perpetuates myths and stereotypes, and it actually has, it's really affected how people perceive Asians. Yeah, there's one
Mhm.
time, actually, it was on my birthday even. I was at Target and I was shopping and I was trying to get some milk, but there's this lady that was looking at the milk. And so I stood like maybe 6 to 8 feet away, like, two shopping carts away from
Yeah.
her, right? And I was just waiting for her. And, she's taking her time, just kind of fussing over the milk. And I'm like, just waiting. I didn't say anything. I had my mask on, I had a shield off my face. I was like, not bothering anybody. And then she looked up at me and then she saw me and she's like, it's just way too crowded. It is way too crowded. And she just started freaking out that I was just standing there watching her, waiting for her to finish getting her milk. I mean, like, didn't say anything, but she's like, it's just much too crowded. And she like grabbed this little boy that was with her, and she just like whoosh, and dragged him away. And I thought, oh, okay. I think she didn't like it that I was Asian, but she didn't. She felt really threatened by my presence. There's like
That
other people standing closer to her, but she really zoned in on me and felt offended by my presence. And that's how it is right now. Like, that's how it is for Asian Americans right now, where they're feeling like other people see them as offensive just for existing.
actually, that's I told you earlier, like pre-show. Here's the thing. I was so glad that we are in our small little town that we
Yes.
don't have that much any incidents, and they're very accepting with Asians. And
Yeah.
my kids knew about that one because most of the people here have adopted. Some had adopted Chinese girls, so we know some of that story about the adoption. And then we have a lot of Vietnamese in town as well. So I think we're not as, I would say, not as crazy about that. But hearing from other side, because there's in the parts of New York where Queens area, where
Hmm.
most I have a lot of friends in there, and
Hmm.
it's very diverse. It has this a lot of I would say Chinese, Filipino in
Yeah.
that area. They are really scared because
Yeah.
they would go in the
Agree.
trains
Hmm.
just being I would say in their it's not their little Chinatown walking. They're already
Hmm.
scared of that
Yeah.
one. And oh, we have somebody commenting here. I just want to say, hi Pita. It's Elizabeth. It's about ignorance. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Definitely. It's the same thing here on the West Coast. I mean, we hear about these attacks in San Francisco, Oakland, LA, and yesterday I just read about a man who was arrested, and one day he attacked an Asian couple, Asian Korean, sorry, Korean American couple in the park, like the elderly Korean couple, and then another day he was like harassing and attacking this other a Japanese American Olympic athlete who was just training at the park. And he was actually yelling, I hate Asians. And, he was saying things like that. I mean, I don't know how that's even okay. And nobody helped them. There were people at the park and no one helped in both situations. No one intervened. And so I think that is really important that in this day and age that, I mean, everybody needs to not be racist, but, beyond being not racist, we need to be anti-racist. We need to be against racism. And we need to speak up when people do these things and say these things that are so incredibly inappropriate. And if you can't say something, can't do anything, then we should at least distract them so that people
mhm.
can get to safety and not feel so intimidated and feel more supported.
See that's one thing now I'm getting some concerns because my daughter will be going to college
Hmm.
and she
Right.
will be commuting because I've heard a lot of horror stories from
Hmm.
Filipinos because Here's the thing. Once we cover this thing with a mask,
Mm-hmm.
just the eyes alone, everybody is Asian. Like all those small eyes, and they don't choose. They just hit you because of that one. And a lot of we have Filipino nurses. A lot of Filipino
Mm-hmm.
nurses
Right.
who actually take the bus or take the subway, going to hospitals, for the night shift.
Mm-hmm.
And they're mostly attacked because of that. And they're like, we're just going to work, or
Right.
and
They're
and then
heroes. They're
they're
healthcare
actually
worker heroes, right? During a pandemic,
actually, yeah. And
right?
actually, I was like telling them, you're hitting this person.
Mm-hmm.
This could be the very person who just saved the life of your mom,
Yeah,
who
that's right.
helped, help your wife during her delivery, or the kid's
Right. Mm-hmm.
delivery, or even you when you have a heart attack and you're there in the ER. They never discriminate you. Then all of a sudden,
Right.
on their way to work, it's just gonna do what? Hurt them because what? Because they look, I would say, they're Filipino, because they look Chinese, or they're just simply Asian,
Mm-hmm.
and you're what, hitting them? It doesn't make sense. And for me, it's scary because I would say my daughter will be commuting,
Right. Right.
and she's going to Jersey City, which is a city, and like city away from our tiny little town,
Right.
without
Right.
Mama
Mm-hmm.
Bear, right?
Right. Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And it's scary because it's like, you know this will be, I'm already scared because it's like a suburban kid going to the city, but the city is
Mm-hmm.
not. Yeah, you know that, right?
I know
And
that. Mm-hmm.
and then a suburban kid going to the city, and then now the city is not safe because she's already a target.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's the sad part for me. Even though I wanted her to be there, but just because of what she looks, she's already like a target. I don't
Right.
want to sound negative, but it is a reality that's going on right now. We
Yeah.
are we are targeted just on what we look like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Definitely. And I think you touched on an important point earlier that, being Asian, it just didn't seem comfortable to rock the boat or report these incidences that your children observed. And I think that, I think that it's hard for some people to see that this anti-Asian hate is an issue, and maybe they would feel uncomfortable reporting it to the police, but they should try if they can. And if they can't, there's this website called stopasianhate.org, and that's a place where they're just collecting all the information, all the reports, and that's actually a really safe place to report. It's just data, and it's really important to share that data. And just since the pandemic started in 2020, they've collected over 3,400 incidences of attacks against Asians in a year. So if you just divide that by number of days, it's like 10 attacks per day. That's a
which are
lot, right?
and that's the reported ones.
Right, right. The ones that people know, like your husband didn't know about the website, right? He didn't know what that was about,
Yeah, he just
and
didn't. It's just sad because I've known that. We
mhm,
My daughters felt that because they're among their Asian friends. Some
mhm.
Asians, especially some Asian parents, they just want to let it go and don't talk
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, yeah.
Because we have that,
Well,
I think,
mhm,
in the culture. I think it was there just to let it go, or like they would say the best revenge is to get an A on your grade, but sometimes it's not. It's
mhm,
not the
right,
A, or it's not being
right.
successful. It's not being rich. It's just
What's
telling
right or
them,
wrong, right?
yep, it's not
Hmm.
that it's not right,
Yeah,
you know,
hmm,
and say it on the spot. Because I know
right.
some would say, oh, like, because I remember there was an incident that happened that um they this family was scared. They were hit by another car. Their car was hit by another car in an accident.
Hmm.
They are on the right. They're on the right, and then the other one was at fault. But they never report. When the cop said, "Oh, you could report it, you could claim it, you could go to, you could go to the lawyers and have it because they're
Hmm.
already at fault, right?"
Hmm. Hmm.
The I would say this Asian family just said no. why we don't want to deal with the hassle,
Mm-hmm.
and if we go to the lawyers, chances are they're gonna, they had that thinking that, no, she's gonna get away with it anyway, so what's
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
point? I'll just
Right.
work
Mm-hmm.
to have this fixed. But I think that mentality is not right,
Mm-hmm.
because you have a right. Everybody has the same rights.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So if she's at fault, then make sure, you have to let them know that she's at fault, right?
Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I was just telling my kids. They I would say I told them most of the time, you are an American. They can't tell you where they can't force you to tell, they can't force you to say I am a Filipino or I'm a Filipino, from the Philippines, because you are not. You're
Yeah.
actually
Mm-hmm.
here. Yes,
Yes.
you
Mm-hmm.
are Filipino by blood, by heritage, you can get, but your citizenship right now, you are an American and you have the same
Mm-hmm.
right as this American.
Mm-hmm.
And and that being said, there's no reason for you to be scared. That's I
Right.
always, and sometimes they call me a, okay. This is what they call me. I am an Asian Karen. They were telling me I'm an Asian Karen because I said no, because it's not just being nosy or something. It's just getting your rights out there. And if you are right, just say
Mm-hmm.
it. You
Right.
know.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
And it's funny because they're like, "Mom, you're actually different from most Filipinos," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm different from most." Because they've known, like, with their friends, when they talk to the other Filipino friends they got, oh, their mom would say, just let it go,
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
pray. I don't underestimate, but they're like, just pray for that person. I said, yes, you pray for that person, but
Mm-hmm.
that person is still at fault. They still have to go somewhere.
Yeah. 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 I
and
think that
and
that's probably part of our food allergy mama bear mindset.
oh yes, no, I think that's the food allergy, because I would
Mm-hmm.
say we've been trained
Yeah.
to be very assertive. That's what I
Yeah.
have to say.
Mm-hmm.
To assert what we need and what
Right.
our rights are for our kids.
Right. Because all this time we've taken care of our kids and advocated for them because their lives depend on it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
And
again, we are at a time where, their lives depend on advocacy just for being Asian Americans.
yeah, actually, see, I never realized that, but it's another, I would say, another fight for
Yes.
to educate people on our part.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
because
right.
it's yeah, it's something that makes them. It's about telling the kids that you are normal, right?
Yeah.
Again,
hmm Yeah.
and you have the same things, and others treat you differently because of that.
Right. Right.
And
I think that, it's so valuable when we share our stories about being Asian Americans and celebrating each other and normalizing just Asian Americans in society. We share our stories, then people understand. It humanizes people and requires a little bravery. And I think no one can ever say that this didn't happen to you. You're Asian American. This is what happens. This is your
mhm,
life. This is your story, and it's just as valid as any other story, and it needs to be shared.
yeah, I think it's time to, because I think when it comes to topics like this, most Asian families would stay away from, just
hmm
being, just because, like, oh, it's just controversial, it's just trendy.
hmm
Actually, I think it's
hmm
time for us to actually pay attention. Like,
Right.
hey, this is what we feel,
Right, right,
and
yeah,
we
yeah.
have feelings too, This is what, it
hmm
matters to us. And I think it's time for other people to know what we actually feel, right?
Right. Yeah,
Because we have
absolutely.
that, yeah, we have that thing that it's okay, are you not
hmm
feeling okay? Yes, I'm okay, but deep inside we have something and we don't want to share it, right?
Right.
and and
Just like that shooting in Atlanta, that really was so traumatizing to read about and to see what happened to those women. Just They were just making a living. But they were accused of being prostitutes. I mean, that's crazy, right? And they
Hmm.
were killed for no good reason by a man who said that he wanted to kill Asians, but yet there were people who were trying to tell a different story, saying that he's mentally ill or that we make a big deal out of it when we share the story, but it's not though. It's actually what happened, and uh, we can place ourselves there. We can see that this could happen to us. We can see that could happen to our moms or our grandmothers. It just makes it so much more real and so much more frightening. People need to understand that this is a real thing, and that Asians and Asian Americans deserve to live their lives in safety and security and not be fearful of being attacked just for being who they are because of their DNA.
Exactly, right? And actually, it's one thing that I didn't know I have to say, but it was, I think it was like last month when my kids and I had a talk with this, because I have two middle schoolers and two in high school, and
Mm-hmm.
I told them, I don't want to say this, but in case you were attacked, try to fight back.
Yeah.
Right away I told them, if somebody hits you, try to hit back, because it's not about bullying. It's about standing up for yourself, and you want to be alive to tell your story. And they're
Yeah,
like, why?
definitely.
Because I want you to be alive. Because if you don't fight back, like
Mm-hmm.
you know, you could be, just because I saw there was one that I saw, a video. It was actually a Filipino grandma on her way to church. This was in New York. She
Mm-hmm.
was hit several times by,
Yes.
and she's like this, what, 4 foot, almost my height, 5 foot
Yeah. Tiny little lady,
lady,
right?
and then that's
Mm-hmm.
like almost a 7 foot guy, like
Mm-hmm.
3 times her size or 4 times her
Mm-hmm.
size, being punched a few times. And I'm like, you're not gonna survive if that's,
Mm-hmm.
it's not even allowed in sports to have that on the same weight level.
That's
And then,
right. Right,
and,
exactly.
and I'm like, and my kids are like, what are you gonna do? I said, you try to hit as much as you can. And then I'm like, why? Because you will die after a few punches. And I
Mm-hmm.
have to know your story. And then they're
Mm-hmm.
like, Mom, why are you saying that? And for me, I felt so sad, because that's the reality that they're
Mm-hmm.
living right now.
Yeah,
And 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 it's like, because we know, I thought that never to hit, never this one, but I said
that's
no, because
right. Mm-hmm.
it's a
This is an
matter of,
exception.
and no, for me, it's survival,
Yeah,
right? It's for
definitely.
one reason. It's like
Mm-hmm.
survival now, because it's like you don't know who will attack you, when you will be attacked, or I don't know what people are thinking right now. They just
Mm-hmm.
saw you, and they're, oh, you're, it's not even like you looked at them. They just picked you up from the, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
from the lines, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and they're like, Mom, why are we having this? They're asking, why are we having this conversation? I said, because I know we are in this tiny town, but you're gonna go out of town,
Right,
and you
right.
never know.
Mm-hmm.
Because
That's right.
because I always say, I believe in the goodness of people, but there's always exception to the rule. And I said, you don't look at them, that they're gonna hit you, but you never know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
yeah.
and they were
It's,
like telling,
it's I think in most of the stories that I've read, people say that, especially the people who are younger that are attacked, they said that they didn't see it coming. They never thought it would happen to them. And that's why they're sharing their story to raise awareness,
mm-hmm,
and I think that it behooves our kids and our young adults and people, everyone to be aware that this could happen and just to be safe. And I don't know if you saw that story about this elderly lady in San Francisco who was attacked and she beat up her attacker and sent him
oh,
to the hospital. I mean, we all
actually
want
we
to be
saw
like
that.
her. Hmm.
Yeah, actually, I saw that, and that's what I told them. Don't be like that Filipino. Be that Chinese grandma.
Yeah, we all want to be like her. It's like, don't mess with
No,
me, please.
and yeah, he's like what? The one who attacked her was like 6 foot tall, something, and she's
Yeah.
also half. And I was looking because she's already bleeding in the
Yeah.
video, but the man was actually in stretcher, and my kids actually asked when they saw it. They're like, "Why is the big man in the stretcher?" Because
Right. Right.
grandma fought back. And
Right.
and they
Right.
were laughing. They're like, "You don't mess around with grandma." I said, "We're taking it as a joke, but guess
hmm
what? This is not a joke. It could
It's
happen.
not. Yeah.
It's
She's
not.
inspirational. She really is inspirational.
Don't mess with grandma." That's what, no, but see, now that's the weird part. We just all sometimes laugh at these things because I think
hmm
but it's just, they would say, but it's not like we just laugh at it for not paying attention. We just want to
hmm
make, we just I don't know, we find something humor on it and maybe try to find some positive out of it, right?
Right, right, right. The irony,
Mhm.
right? We're kind of laughing at the irony, but celebrating her grit.
Uh-huh. I know.
She's very inspirational, and it just feels like it gives us hope that we can do the same thing, that we would have that type of grit to fight back and to not be a victim. And but I think that it's still a traumatizing experience for her, right? She's going to
I know.
remember this for the rest of her life, and it's not easy. It's not hard, not easy at all.
Yeah. And I think because it's just like what? Being random walking in the street,
Yeah, yeah.
right? It's something that we all should have anyway, to be in a safe space.
hmm hmm Yeah,
You're all in we're entitled to. It's not even entitled, I would say. It's our right to feel safe
right,
in our streets.
right. We're not in
And
a war zone, you know.
yeah. hmm
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is just different. And how about your kids? How did you talk to them about it? Or what do they feel about it?
Um, I think that I'm just gonna have to keep being mom about this. Be careful, watch where you're going, always be with a friend. And I think our kids are like, oh, we'll be fine, mom. I can run really fast. And, and I think that's part of being young and optimistic and feeling invincible. I think that's just normal. That's a normal
Yeah.
response for them, and it's a normal response for me to say, "Be careful, be safe. Don't go out late at night and things like that." Right. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah. So hopefully they will just always remember to be safe. Hopefully God will protect them. That's all I
hmm
can hope for.
I know. Me too. Because I was like, some things are beyond our control anymore, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Definitely. Yeah, sometimes I take my mom out for, to get her groceries, or she has a doctor's appointment, and then she'll carry her purse in her hand, like kind of awkwardly, and she's like, and I'm like, why don't you wear crossbody so that your hands are free, so that you can do whatever you need to do? And she's like, oh no, 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 I just want to hold it in my hand so that in case someone wants my purse, they can just snatch it, and I don't get pulled to the ground. I'm like, oh, that's really sad that she has to think that way. So,
uh
okay, I'll carry your purse for you. As if I could defend her, you know? I can't, but I'll carry her purse for her so that she doesn't have to worry about her getting a purse snatched. And
um,
so, just the two of us, I'm 50 something years old and my mom's like 70 something. And so, um, two of us walking around thinking that I'm going to be able to protect her is kind of foolish and silly. But what choice do we have, right? I mean, she can't stay home indefinitely. She has to go to the bank. She has to go see a doctor. She has to be able to go and do her things that she needs to do out in public.
mhm.
So
See,
something has to change. I hope that something changes soon, that people will see that, it's not okay to see Asian Americans as others. It kind of makes me wish that we can go back to just like, oh, why don't you just objectify Asian American women?
Oh my goodness.
right? And not that don't please don't take that serious. I just, I not that I want that. That's not the good, but at least it doesn't threaten my life,
Yeah, at least don't threaten your life, right? Uh, which reminded me, I got the word Oriental for the past few weeks. We had that word
Hmm.
Oriental, and I said
Oh.
I told my kids before I was described as somebody talked to me and she told me like, oh, where do you live? I said I live down there, because
Hmm.
she's like, oh, you're the one that my son's been telling me, the pretty Oriental girl. And I'm like, is that a compliment? At that time, I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know how to react because it's like, did you just call me Oriental, but you called me pretty? Does that mean you're complimenting me? You're insulting me or what? And and then my kid said, what did you tell her? I have no expression. I don't know what's the expression on my face. And then she just she just waved and left, because we're just
Hmm.
walking in the street.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I was called Oriental and I was called pretty. And I was like,
Hmm.
it is weird. And then my kids are like, maybe I want to be called Oriental. I don't know. And then when I posted that on Facebook before, and one of my friends told me, oh, this should have been your answer. So you're my Occidental neighbor. And I'm like, what? And he just told me, you should have answered her that, and maybe she'll be
Mm.
thinking, because right now, she probably was not thinking about you, and you're like thinking what she just told you.
Right,
For
right.
the
Now,
longest time.
Oriental describes rugs. Oriental rugs. Asian people.
Asian, right? And it's funny because when one of my friends heard that, she's like, "Oh my god!" The last time I heard that was my grandmother, and bless her soul, she's the nicest person, but she lived in that generation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. I think calling people Oriental has been out of vogue for like 20 or 30 years. And there's somebody that told me that said that, oh, I didn't know. I didn't know. I'm like, how can you not know?
it's so weird,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
But I guess I think I love this conversation with you because it's very light. We're just talking about what we feel as Asian moms, what our concerns and
right,
what our stories are,
right,
and
right.
and I
I would
think
have never
yeah,
imagined in a million years that I would be talking about race. I'm not an expert at it at all, but I just have lived my life as an Asian American, and so, we can mainly share from our own experiences, and apparently we've had a lot.
yeah. And you know what? I love it because you actually talk about it. I know because
Mm,
I know I still have Filipino friends or even other friends or even some people I ask if it is a good topic for the show. They're like, good luck finding a guest. And I'm like, why they don't want to talk about it? We're not going to be political or anything. We're just talking experience. But like, good luck
hmm.
asking people what they experience being Asian in America and then
Hmm.
actually, ready to talk about it in the internet or for
Hmm.
everybody to watch. And I'm like,
Hmm.
well, I got Sharon.
Thank you for inviting me. It's just a fun
Oh,
conversation.
oh,
I'm
thank
really happy to
you.
talk about it with you.
No, thank you so much. Because you know what? It could have been a monologue for me. It's going to be the weirdest part.
Oh, you do
because I,
fine. You do fine.
because it was really because I said this topic has been close to my heart because my
Hmm.
kids we've been talking about it because of the it's not because of the recent news but it's always part of the conversation but
Hmm.
I in the family
Yeah,
but most people don't want to share it with others,
yeah.
like because you see I have my kids have a lot of friends. They have Spanish friends. They got this um, Polish friends or whatever, but they never tell their feelings are on certain issues that really pertains to who they are,
Right,
right?
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I think in some cultures they don't. Well, for our culture, we don't want to talk about it. And
hmm
actually, that's one thing I told my kids: be proud being Asian.
Right.
Because most people, it's funny because there's a lot of certain groups who would say, uh, hey, oh, well, what are your roots? And this one, they just say, oh, I'm not Asian. I'm not Asian. I'm an American. Hello, how can you deny it? I could see it right
hmm
away. And
hmm
they're like, oh, I was born in Hawaii. And this one, yes, you are, but you can't deny that you have
hmm
Asian
Yeah.
heritage, and it's something that we can't hide.
Right, right. I
Hmm.
guess there's a lot of different responses, but I think that most of it, people, there's a lot of different responses that people can have. And, they can say, I'm American, or I'm an Asian American, or I'm an Asian, right? But if you're living here, then you're pretty much living an Asian American life, right?
Hmm.
But I think that sometimes people might just say, I'm American because they don't want to be seen as not American. They don't want to be seen as other, right? And then they can say, oh, I'm Asian because I'm from this country, but I just happen to be living here because they care about their heritage and their experiences, and they don't see that, even though you're an Asian living in America, that really truly makes you an Asian American, which is
Hmm.
slightly different from just being plain American, because you don't want to be seen as other, but and I think that that's part of like trying to fit in for us, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, I'm an ABC, which means American born Chinese. And some people think, oh, Sharon is so Americanized. She's just so out there, and then other people might say, oh, Sharon is so Chinese. She knows all these different things about Chinese culture and she'll like eat these weird things, whatever, like things that are different. And I feel like I can never really fit in because I'm Chinese American.
Hmm. Yeah. I think it's something that we all have in common,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you are not, like for me, they would say you're not Filipino enough because you're
hmm
very vocal. And
hmm
I'm not a nurse. So I'm not
hmm
Filipino enough because I'm not a nurse. So
hmm
sad, right? But
It's
I'm
funny.
not. Yeah.
hmm
And the thing is, like, why we have other jobs, in the world.
Yeah, that's
But
right. Again, stereotypes.
yeah. Now I remember Jokoy. I think you know Jokoy, right?
hmm
The
Sorry, I'm trying to turn
comedian.
out the light here.
Yeah,
Oh,
the,
yeah,
the
yeah, I've heard
comedian
of
Jokoy.
him.
He would say, "Yeah, you're a clown. That's what we're being called then, right?"
Yeah.
But we're against what is the norm for a typical
hmm
Filipino. So it's like you're not Filipino enough. And
hmm
then if I go, like, here in our town where it's mostly, I would say, Italian and Irish, they're like, oh, you're so Filipino because you talk
hmm
about this one. And
hmm
and chances are I'm not, and most Filipinos actually don't consider me Filipino because I don't look that Filipino.
Even though you're from the Philippines.
I would say my Vietnamese friends embrace me more when they see me, or if they're not my friends. If I go to, like, I would say, a salon, the
hmm
Vietnamese nail place, they would embrace
hmm
me right away that I'm Vietnamese the minute they saw
hmm
me. And I'm like, I'm not
hmm
Vietnamese, I'm Filipino. No, you're Vietnamese.
That's so funny.
But
You're honorary.
yeah, I'm honorary. Or, like, I would say the Vietnamese, even the Chinese, even the Koreans. If I go to
hmm
H Mart, they embrace me. But the Filipinos
hmm
look at me like, who is this?
Yeah. Oh,
like,
sorry. But
like you're not part of us. I'm like, hello.
yeah, yeah.
I could hear you and I understand totally what you're saying in Tagalog, right?
Isn't that strange? That's so strange that they would do that
Yeah.
to you.
But
hmm
because I think it's because you don't look like a, because even my kids told me you don't look like most of the titas or the
hmm
Filipino, the
hmm
Filipinos out there. You don't look much like them. So
hmm
I think that's why they're probably not curious, but are you intimidated? What do
hmm
what you are? But I'm
They're
like,
confused.
yeah, they're confused, but they don't want to embrace me as such,
hmm
right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we got one viewer here. She said, "It's Amy. Hi, Amy." She said, "It's interesting. I have a whole bunch of stories of weird racial things that
Mm-hmm.
have been said to me as a quarter Japanese woman." Ooh, Amy, I'd love to hear those stories. Let us know about it. Right? I know we have, I don't know, we have like weird stories that maybe we should compile that, right?
That's a great
And get a
idea.
book out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we could
That's
do
a
that
great
one.
idea. Mm-hmm.
Because I think they would see like, because I think most people, or I would say most Americans, would not think that they've said it,
Mm-hmm.
or
Right.
they that they don't mean anything about it, but it actually has a meaning to us,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right. Right.
And I think
Definitely.
it's and and the thing is, most of us don't really talk about it. It's like it's okay, or like we
Mm-hmm.
didn't hear it, it just passed,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, or we just don't have the mental energy to have a discussion about every single weird thing that someone has said to us.
Right? But
Hmm.
because for them, probably, if they said something weird to them, it is right away, it's weird.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
for us, it's like, you just said something weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Or,
I remember there's one time some guy was trying to hit on me, some white guy, he was trying to hit on me. And the way he approached me was he had his lunch with him and he showed me his rice bowl with rice in it with a cover and chopsticks. And he wanted to show me that he can eat rice from a rice bowl with chopsticks. That he was trying to impress me with his lunch. And I'm like, okay, that's nice.
oh my
He thought
God.
he genuinely thought he was trying to impress me. That would just really win me over. And and it's bizarre, right? It's really bizarre. But he really thought it was a good move.
Actually, look, she just said a guy was saying I'm exotic looking, and what
Yeah.
are you?
Yes. Right.
Actually, you know what? I tried my best not to say that, but on the earlier part when we were kids and we're going in, when I was living in Pennsylvania, not my kids, when I was living in Pennsylvania, when I told you that we're the only Asians there, I feel like an exotic animal in a zoo because every time I walk in or when they go to our place, that place, everybody will look at me like I'm kind of like an attraction in a museum.
Uh
Like,
huh.
what are
Yeah.
you? And I'm
Yeah.
like, hello,
I
I'm
did.
just trying to walk or
Mm-hmm.
or do my grocery, but they would be like staring. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
hello. I like sometimes it's like, and then for us, I think what I'm just thinking is like, oh, are my pants right? Are my shoes? Did I wear the
Yeah.
same type of shoes?
Right.
But I felt like, hello, do I have an extra ear in here, or do I have a horn or something? Because
Yeah.
they look in a certain. The look is just totally weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you're an other, like something completely different that they've never seen before, which is unfortunate.
I know, right? I
Mhm.
mean,
Yeah.
you see us on TV. I mean, we do.
Right.
We have some of our kind in TV. We're not like Martians.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a different experience. Mhm.
Yeah, because I remember that when one of my friends said, I'm not going to go in that part of New Jersey. I remember going in a certain part of New Jersey, and I said, oh, they have like a tiny museum. It's really nice in there. It's a nice farm. And you know what my friend told me? Don't go there because what they experienced, what they experienced. And I said, what
Mhm.
did you experience? They are not looking at the displays. They're actually looking at you in that
Oh.
farm and in that music. I
Mhm.
said, I never noticed it because I was just pushing my kids in the stroller, just like an
Mhm.
ordinary
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have it in your brain, right? And I'm like, what
Mhm.
are you trying to say? You went on that place. They are looking at you, not the attractions. And I'm like, what is she
Mhm.
trying to say? And
Mhm.
after minutes of conversation, they're like, "Do you realize that you're the only Asian who went on that place?
Mm-hmm.
We went there once, and they're not coming back because they felt that they are being looked at. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
comfortable." And I said, "I never noticed that. I just thought they're looking at me because I'm pushing a stroller and I have kids."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Because you don't see yourself as other. You're just minding your own business.
Hmm. Which is,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good thing because we are not others, right?
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, that is so fun. You know what? This is so fun, Sharon. We should talk more about this and
Sounds
maybe
good.
invite
Yeah.
Amy or other things. Yeah, but we can
Yeah,
talk.
that'd be great. I'd love to hear some of Amy's stories.
Yeah, that could be crazy, right? Maybe we'll talk about what? What's our title gonna be? Exotic looking?
Or how about how not to approach Asian women with a rice bowl?
Oh, that's a good YouTube title. Now I want that now. And it's not clickbait. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I have to find a guy to do the intro for us.
Well, it's really good talking with you,
I
Roshi.
know
It
it
was so
is
fun.
really
Hmm.
fun, and
Yeah.
I think some of our viewers who are watching who will watch this would see if you are an Asian, I think you will, we could empower you to talk more, share more of your
Yeah.
experiences, and
That'd be great.
and then for those who are not Asians, we hope that you learned something from us, how
Hmm.
we feel, how our kids feel, and maybe some of our struggles and that we encountered being
Hmm.
Asian moms, raising Asian kids, and what are we actually going through? Because some parents think, oh, some moms think parenting is already difficult. It is difficult when you are in a different container. I always say,
Yes, right. Yes, that's a good way
being
to phrase it. Yes.
yeah, being in a different
Hmm.
container, and you have different concepts on that container, right?
Hmm. Right. Hmm.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Oh, so thank you again, Amy. Before we leave, I just want to show what you said. Enriching our children's lives exactly. Because you know what? That's one thing I really made sure is that my kids will continue to appreciate that Asian culture in them, that
Hmm.
Filipino in them,
Yeah.
right? Because that's
Hmm.
what makes them unique. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what makes your children unique.
That's right.
So,
Hmm. Yeah,
mhm,
definitely.
mhm,
Yeah. So that's probably why we do what we do, right?
mhm.
In our blogs, in our activities with our families, and the things that we read and things that we talk about, because we want them to feel comfortable with themselves.
Mhm. And speaking of Asian, I know Sharon has a lot of Asian recipes, and I know everybody loves Asian food. So let's talk about Nut Free Walk a bit.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what invite the people what Nut Free Walk is, and
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
So basically, like a few years ago, well, actually, when we were first diagnosed, I felt like in order to make the recipes, make our Asian food safe for my kids, I had to adapt a lot of recipes because my children were allergic to peanuts, tree nuts, eggs. And so I kind of had to take all of those things out of our food and still make the Chinese food because my kids apparently loved Asian food. And so then I started accumulating some recipes, and people want to know, how do I make my food allergy safe? And so then I realized, oh, maybe I should start this blog. And that's how I started with my blog called NutFree Walk. And so that's where I share most of my recipes, and I talk about, things that I have learned as an allergy mom for the last, I guess, 14, 15 years now. My younger son is actually going off to college, and we'll be empty nesters soon. But I'll still keep
Oh.
working on my blog because my kids ask me for a cookbook so that they can cook the foods that they love when
Mhm.
they are on their own.
Oh, that's good. So, guys, check her out. It's Sharon, and it's from NutFree Walk. And I love all her recipes. I mean,
Oh, thank you.
I would say they're spot on because I know there's so many recipes out there that you can find in the internet, but her recipes are spot on. She actually measured everything, which
Right.
is tough for Asian food
That's
because
right.
most Asians don't really measure things, but
That's
she
right.
actually
Hmm.
tried. I would say she put the effort to measure everything. So if you're not very familiar with Asian food, just follow it to the T. It
Hmm.
works, right?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, it does. Because,
Hmm.
I'd ask my mom, what's the recipe? She's like, oh, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, like this much or that. I'm like, oh, it's really hard. But so
Yeah.
it's actually like a little translation.
I know.
It's like, this is about a tablespoon.
Like this, right? And then you put
Yeah,
more.
yeah, yeah, something like that.
No, but I liked it because I tried some of your recipes and they are spot on. So if
Thank
you
you.
are looking for Chinese food that are not, even though you don't have allergies, check it out because she is actually making good Chinese food.
Oh, thank
And
you. Thank you for
yes,
trying them. Hmm.
yeah. So guys, thank you so much, and I hope you learned something from us. And I hope to see you again next week for another episode of Getting Candid with Rochie. And again, if you have questions, if you have stories to share, make sure use the comment section either on Facebook or on um, YouTube because we're more than happy. We're going back to answer them for you. And you could reach Sharon at nutfreewalk.com and you can also reach me at TheFrugalistaMOM.com. So again, guys, thank you so much. And I know we were over time, but I hope to hear from you soon and love to hear your comments from us. So see you again next week. Bye.